When I was a teenager, aside from playing poker, I was involved in sports. I remember a time where there was one group of guys who, we bet everything, but these guys like to bet baseball. So I bet baseball with them, and they always liked the biggest favorite on the board. So I ended up, with the underdogs. I remember one night I was at a poker room playing, and I checked the scores, the baseball scores, and they bet 8 games that night. Of the 8 games, I was winning 7, and I was tied in the other one, like past the 7th inning. So I was feeling pretty good about it. I was going to make a pretty nice big payday. I went home, fell asleep, woke up the next morning, and they phoned me, the guys, who I bet with, like, hey, we should meet up. And I was like, yeah, we should. That's right, we should meet up. Oh, bankroll explosion happened right here. And so make a long story short, because I didn't check the scores in the morning yet, and I said, so what's the figure? How much do you guys owe me? And they said, owe you? I said, we won. It's like, we won all 8 games. I look back at the scores. One of the games I was winning 7-0. We lost that one. Another game was up 7-2 in the 9th inning. This is almost impossible. They tied it up 7-7. And then in the 11th inning, I was up 10-7. Lost that game in the 11th inning, 11-10. Make a long story short, all 8 games, 7 of which I was leading, the 7th inning or past, I lost. So I owed them $8,500. I didn't have the $8,500. But the good news is I had a group of guys, some younger Asian kids, who owed me $11,000. Problem was, they weren't answering my phone calls. So it was becoming more difficult to figure out what I was going to do here. So I remember I had about a 3-4 day stretch where I was holding this guys off and being dishonest about my situation. I had probably $2,300 to my name at the time. And like I said, I owed these guys I owed them $8,500. Well, I owed them $8,500. And I didn't have it, but I was banking on these other guys paying me what they owed me. Well, it became obvious after about a week that these guys had no intentions of paying me at all. So that put me in a bind. I had to tell these guys the truth. And the truth was that they made bets with me, and as it turns out, I couldn't pay. I couldn't pay them. Certainly not on the spot, but had every intention to, if there was any way that I possibly could. And it was scary to tell them the truth. It was embarrassing. I felt shame. And then I liked these people too. They were like really good guys. And the fact that they're really good guys actually helped me out in a roundabout way, because I eventually did build up the courage to go up to them and let them know like my situation. I told them about the other group. That's not a defense, because I promise, your word is all you have, especially in this business. When you break your word with people, you lose your credibility, and you just can't be trusted, and really in this world, all we really have is our word. So I told them the truth, and like I said, it wasn't easy. Luckily, they were cool about it. And what ended up happening was probably one of the most important things in my life at that time, or actually going forward. I learned one thing for sure, and that, I would never do something like that ever again, first and foremost. But on top of that, I learned responsibility. I made a deal with them, or I had the $2,300. They knew I was a good poker player, and I could play 10-20 limit hold'em. So I made a deal with them where I would pay them $500 a week over 17 weeks and pay them in full. So it forced me to go in there and work. I worked 40-hour weeks. It's kind of how I developed a lot of the strategies that I used to become a professional poker player. And I made sure that every Friday I came with $500 and I gave it to them. Christmas came around, and I was always on schedule. I was always paying them. And they decided to throw me a bonus and let me off one week for $500, which they didn't have to, and I was more than happy to pay, but they decided that to show me a sense of appreciation that I was keeping my word. I ended up paying them off in about 12 weeks rather than 17, and built a little bit of a bankroll myself to start playing professionally. But at the time, had they not been as cool about it with me, well, who knows what would have changed. I went and played in poker games, and these people I was playing with didn't know the situation. It would have been much more difficult for me to show my face if people knew the truth. So I thank them to this day for being understanding and respecting the fact that I told him the truth. And when I think of that story, it reminds me of how relevant it is to a lot of issues in poker we see today with a lot of people who have done similar things. At the World Series of Poker this year, I staked some people sometimes, right? And there was 3 guys in particular that I staked that I gave them money, and they're supposed to buy into tournaments, and then we split the money 50-50 or however we want to do it. And 3 of the guys blew some of the stake money, 3 of them, for various different reasons. One of them I know has kids and felt the pressure. The other one, similar story, and the other one just, blew it. And it was shocking to me because I looked at these guys and I always felt like they were responsible, they had integrity, they're honest. And each and every one of them came to tell me the truth. And I saw that same shame and I saw that same embarrassment in their eyes when they had to tell me. They knew what they did was wrong. You could see it in their eyes. And so I had a choice on how to handle it. Handle it like those guys helped me when I was younger, or, well, it was never really a choice for me. It was to put them on blast because I didn't see how that's going to help them at all. So instead, I chose to be understanding. I don't condone it. What they did is shameless. I'm sorry, not shameless, shameful. It shows a lack of integrity. It's dishonest. It's something you just can't do stuff like that in our industry. It's just wrong, flat out. But I sensed that they were genuine in the fact that they were going to pay me back when they could. And again, there's no timeline for something like this. They can't say to me, I'm going to have it to you by December 1st because, there's no guarantees. In our business, we don't get paychecks like regular people. We get money based on how well we do, and sometimes, you can go through bad stretches even if you're the best poker player in the world. So anyway, these are 3 good people who made really bad decisions, and they hurt friends, they hurt me, they hurt themselves, because when you give your word and you go back on it, when you lie, when you're dishonest, when you cheat people, you hurt them, but you really hurt yourself more because you're nothing anymore. You have no soul. It's just wrong. So, well, I guess this relates obviously to another big issue. I have another friend who has done some horrifyingly bad things. You cannot condone it. There's no excuse whatsoever for the things that he's done to people, to himself, to destroy his own family and destroy his own life. There's just no excuse for that sort of thing. I don't condone it, but at the same time, I cannot condone what I did as a teenager. What I did to those people, despite the fact that I eventually paid and made it right. That's totally besides the point. At the time, I lied. I showed a lack of integrity. I bit off way more than I can chew. I didn't handle my finances properly to make sure that the bets I was taking, if I lost all 8, was I going to be able to pay it? I was in a fantasy land, a fantasy world of thinking like, you know what? I'm not going to lose. I don't lose, man. That's not what I do. So I found myself in that bind. And again, I don't look back and think there's anything I can say or do to condone those things because they're wrong. But I did make it right, and I'm proud of the fact that I owned up to it, and I learned my lesson from it. And there are other people in our poker world that have made mistakes and have done a lot of good in terms of paying it back. For example, Justin Bonomo, a long time ago did some things online that were, not exactly ethical. Multi-accounting, which we now know is absolutely wrong. I feel like he's done everything he can to repair that. I look at someone like Sorrel Mizzi, who's had, been involved in some shady things in the past, and I wholeheartedly believe that he's ashamed of it, and he's wholeheartely willing to accept responsibility and move past it and be a man of integrity. And I 100% trust him. And I didn't before. I probably didn't before until very recently. But I see a change in Sorrel, and I'm proud of him for all the growth that he's had. Another kid named Brad Booth, who I don't know where he's at right now. I know at one point he owed people a bunch of money. He lied. He screwed people, took money out of their accounts, all these horrible things. And he did a video to everyone in the poker world. Some of you look at it and think it wasn't authentic. The point is he didn't have to do that, and I'm proud of him for stepping out of his comfort zone to do that, because really it's the first step in being accountable and taking responsibility for your actions and all the things you did. I don't know, again, like I said, I don't know if he slipped up since. I've heard some rumors that maybe he has, But everybody is capable of keeping their word and having integrity. And everyone deserves second, even a third chance in a lot of cases. And but it really only comes when people ask for forgiveness and they're straight about what they did. If someone is vehemently saying they did nothing wrong and they feel like they're right, they're being self-righteous and they think that it wasn't really their fault, well, you can't forgive someone that doesn't admit it, and I totally understand that. So back to one of the main questions in terms of why I choose, or why I have chosen to attack certain people and not others. A lot of it has to do with how I'm emotionally connected to the different types of acts that have been done. I myself, as I mentioned, as a teenager, lied to people and essentially screwed them out of money. But again, I paid them back. But the point is, at that point, I did those things. So I have some empathy because I know what it felt like for me. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I felt worthless. And at the time, my word was obviously worthless because I promised these guys I was going to pay, on Friday. And guess what? Friday came around and they didn't get no money. So I do have some empathy there. I also have empathy for those that do bad things, realize it, and try to make amends for it and own it. That's a little bit different than some of the issues I've attacked people for. I've never really attacked people for something like that, and I don't plan to. I'll try to support them in any way that I can, whether they're friends or enemies. And I know some people in this poker world who I really don't like and probably won't, who I have actually attacked in the past, who owe money and have their own little issues with that, and it's not a can of worms that I open up, and that's my personal choice. If that makes the poker world feel like I'm sort of like not being balanced, that's your right to think that. I personally believe that it is very balanced, and I believe that people that don't ask for forgiveness and don't apologize for the things they did, they don't deserve a second chance until they ask for one. And that includes people like Howard Lederer, who, again, obviously in the Lederer files and in the video past that, I don't feel in any part of me that he is taking responsibility for all the things that he did to put players' balances in jeopardy. As for what some of the other owners did, including my friend, who just mind-boggling what fantasy land he was living in to, at the time, choose to do what he did. It's just mind-boggling, and it's not the guy that I grew up knowing. That's the man of his word, the man of integrity. Wasn't the same one that did those things. I'd love to see him make it right, and I do believe at some point he will. I don't know how, I don't know how long, but I do believe that he will. And I'm willing, when he's ready, to support him in making it right. And I would do that for any friend of mine who I felt was genuine about accepting responsibility. So this is really a response also to a blog written by Geraldos Vulgaris, who was personally affected by one of my friends and personally wronged. And he mentioned me in his blog in saying that I wasn't being balanced, and it's a fair criticism. I understand where that comes from. I would say in retrospect that I'm certain that he knows at least 10 people in our industry who owe money and haven't paid and lied, and I know that he's choosing to talk about something that affected him personally. And again, there's nothing wrong with what he did. He has every right to do that. But I would also argue that that's not exactly balanced as well, because, and I think he would agree, actually, that if he does know of other people that have wronged others, in sports or poker, that he probably should feel the same types of responsibility to out those people as well. Because I know that in a lot of his writing, he talked about being conflicted about saying anything because he wanted to make sure that he was going to be paid, and he felt like if he did say something, it would hurt his chances. And I do think that at the core, he always wants to do the right thing, not just for himself, but what's just the right thing. I trust in his ability to know the difference. And but I would say that, again, if attacking me for being imbalanced, if that's the way you see it, there's nothing I can do to change your mind. I personally, again, with issues like this, across the board with people that I'm close to and people that I'm not. I've never been public about it, and I won't start doing that now because I don't think it is as productive to do like in a public forum like this with a lot of people it's not going to affect. It's just not the way that I believe that we should do things. But again, feel free to agree to disagree or whatever you want to call it. One other thing I wanted to touch on the whole idea is, and I guess this is your question of the day for you, and you can reply in the comment box and let me know what you think. If someone stole money from you, does it matter to you at all what the purpose was? Does it matter? I don't think again, obviously it's wrong either way. But if someone stole $1 million from you to buy themselves a car and some new bracelets and a nice big necklace, or they stole $1 million from you to gamble, try to double it, and then pay back other debts, do you see that as different at all, or is it just the same scummy kind of like douchebaggy behavior either way? I'll give you my thoughts. I do see a difference. I think, on the one side, you have a guy that's just being 100% fully selfish and really has no intention of paying back, and this is what I call a scammer. The other side is a guy who's delusional, obviously, arrogant in believing that this is the right choice, dishonest for sure, but the motivation is, in their mind, they're doing what they think is the right move at the time. They're wrong. Clearly they're wrong. Like, this is never okay. But the intention is to make everyone whole, and to do that in a way they think they can, which, again, like I said, it's your question of the day. Feel free to fire in the comment box. If you think I'm being completely unbalanced, go ahead and fire away. As you can see, by the way, I'm not at home. It's been a while since I could do this video blog because there's construction going on at the house. I've got my Wi-Fi connected again, but it's loud. There's like banging drills and stuff like that. So I'm just down in the community park, having a nice little moment with myself, if you will. And if you've noticed, something looks a little different. I think I'm going to go with it for a little while and see. Certainly a lot easier. Shower and go. One other issue I wanted to touch on, there's so many other things I'd like to talk about, but I really wanted to make sure that I hit home my feelings on this specific issue, is a shot clock. I've been talking about it for quite a while now. A lot of people have sort of jumped on board with the idea. The last 2 tournaments I've played, I've actually haven't seen a need for one, playing with a higher percentage of amateurs. It's interesting to me that you rarely see amateurs tank for a really, really long time, and it's often a lot of the professionals who have watched poker on television, and they've seen other players like Durr, who sort of took some responsibility on high-stakes poker for taking so long and then feeling like everyone else is starting to do the same thing. And, in one sense, I feel like, okay, certainly we could do like what the NBA did and instill a shot clock. At one point, I remember I read something on Quad Jacks about there was a game that was 1918. It was an NBA game because this guy, George Meekan, was so good that all they did was try to keep the ball away from him, and once they were up by a point, they just dribbled in the backcourt, right? Well, that certainly doesn't make for a good game. So what they did was they enhanced the game. They improved the quality of the viewer's experience, and they did that by instilling the 24-second shot clock. This was prompted in my mind because of what I watched at the World Series of Poker. We had a live broadcast without hole cards, which I think is a lot more difficult to keep players' attention, especially casual fans. Like for me, even sometimes hands would go on, and I'm like, I'm kind of not into this. But I believe wholeheartedly that anticipation is what creates drama. So when you see a guy's got kings, he's got ace queen, you're like, oh boy, here it comes, what's going to happen? And I feel like that connects to the heart a little bit more. It keeps people connected. So we had that issue because we were on just a 15-minute delay. Personally, I think we should go to a 30-minute delay so we can allow to show the hole cards in real time. But the other side of the coin, we saw at certain times players were tanking for 3-4 minutes. And that's tough, especially when you see no hole cards. It's tough to watch, and it's not good for the game. It's really not something that's just based on like it being bad for television, but even like I'm talking day 1A when there's no TV and stuff like that. There are times where people are just taking way too much time. And the thing is, we've got this culture of calling a clock is a bad thing to do. You do that and it's like, screw you, buddy. You're bad. Oh, you on my shit list now because you called the clock on me, et cetera, et cetera. But really, it's in everyone's right to do that. And I feel like, aside from the idea of like getting a governing body to instill a shot clock, we can do it on our own. And I'm going to do it, and I have been doing it. I haven't had to call it on anyone. What I'm doing now, and don't take this personal, please, because it's not. I'm doing this fairly for everyone. When I sit down at when I sit down at a table in a tournament, I'm going to let everybody know that the first time they tank for more than 2 minutes, I'm not going to say a word. Take as much time as you like, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you want. Once you've done that once, at the 2-minute mark of your tank, I'm going to call a 1-minute clock. So you've got 3 minutes to make your decision, which is plenty. That is a long time when you think about it, especially for a lot of the online guys who are used to 20 tabling. I mean, you know you're capable of this, right? This isn't, everyone talks about, it's changing the game. It really isn't. It really isn't changing the game nearly as much as you think, because the majority of people will just adapt to it, and it won't even be an issue. In Australia, we played a tournament, 100,000 buy-in with a 30-second clock. You know how many people were called? You know how many times the clock was called on someone? You know how many times a hand was dead because someone didn't act 30 seconds? 0. It was like clockwork. It worked really, really well. And so anyway, I'm going to take it upon myself that if this is an issue that bothers me, that people are taking a little bit too much time, I'm going to call it upon myself to address it. And if you want to do the same thing, or if you have a system in mind, you let the table know, and just make sure it's fair and balanced. We've used that word a little bit today, but fair and balanced. Don't just call the clock on people you don't like and let your friends take all the time in the world. You have to be, equal with it, and that's what I'm going to do. And I know that's the hard part. I actually sensed it one day. I like Vanessa Selps, and she was in a hand against Lucky Chewy at a tournament at Bellagio, and they were getting close to the clock, and I felt inside me a little bit of anxiety because I'm like, oh my God, I don't really want to call it on Vanessa. She's tough anyway. She might smack me in the head. She won't. But I didn't really want to do that. But at the same time, how can I call the clock on others if I'm not going to call the clock on her? So be fair and balanced with it. I think it's a good step for the game. We've gotten to a point now where it's a little bit absurd, a little ridiculous. So that's all I got for right now. As I said, I got a whole bunch of other things to talk about, but I really wanted to address that issue. And if you don't feel like I addressed that to your satisfaction, I apologize, but that's honestly how I feel about it. I can honestly say with integrity and honesty that this isn't something, if I knew about an enemy, that I would come public with. And I do see this personally, my personal conviction, I do see this as very different than a lot of the things I've said about Howard Lederer, because one of the key differences is this. Justin Bonemos admitted what he did is really wrong. Sorrell has come out, Brad Booth, and the like, and hopefully soon you'll see others like my friend do the same. But Howard has taken the position that he isn't wrong at all, pretty much. I mean, there was somewhat of an apology, but not really, as far as not to my satisfaction. It was one of as an owner, we are all equally at fault here, and it didn't win me over. It certainly didn't seem sincere or genuine or honest to me. So yeah, I do see that as different, and besides, the issue is very different to me. So looking back, I see the issue as very different than borrowing money from people with the intention of paying them back by winning and screwing them, screwing yourself, destroying your credibility, and just feeling ashamed. I see it as different, and you have every right to see it how you like to see it. That's my 2 cents, and I live in this skin, and I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of how I view the situation, and I have no real turmoil inside me about it at all. So that's about it, guys. I'm gonna go to Montreal tomorrow, play the World Poker Tour. Looking forward to it. I'm excited to play some poker. I'm excited to connect with some old friends. I'm gonna see Jonathan Duhamel out there. We're gonna play a little bit of hockey. Antonio Philak is gonna be down there. Phil Kessel, Toronto Maple Leaf guy. He's got no hockey to play, so he's gonna be down there. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Montreal's a great town. If you haven't been there, you like to party, you like to have some fun, definitely check out WPT Montreal. Then I'll be back in Vegas for the Bellagio event. Looking forward to that one. I've come first and third in that one back in the day. So I'm feeling like, every time I play it, I feel like I can win this one. I know I can win this one because I've won this one before. So I'm excited about that. I think in the next couple days, you can expect to see a blog from Sorrel Mizzi. Him and I shared an experience this weekend and a previous weekend that is, it's life-changing in a positive way. And I'm really proud of him for the steps he's made. And I'm looking forward to reading his blog. He's an intelligent, positive influence on the poker community, and you'll see that more and more each day. All right.